All right, guys, welcome to a virtual meeting of the minds here at Bow Hunt or Die. Tonight, we are going to be talking about one of the most fiercely debated topics out there, and that is broadheads, the one item that is most responsible for harvesting our animals, besides ourselves and our shooting, of course. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd to introduce our panel of experts and people that we will be talking with tonight.
Thanks, Justin. Well, first up, we've got PJ Reilly with Lancaster Archery. And, you know, PJ definitely is an expert, in my opinion, Justin, because he told us before we started that he started in the days of wooden broadheads. So I think we're definitely, and as you pointed out, his gray hair, you know what, I think he's a great expert to be on board. Now, the other guests that we have is Angie and Scott Denny. For those of you who don't know who they are, with Table Mountain Outfitters. I mean, in my opinion, when it comes to true experts, right, having somebody like them on board. I mean, I met Scott and Angie well over, let's not age ourselves, 20 plus years ago. But I mean, you're talking about, you know, two people here who have been in an outfitting business, chasing animals legitimately every single day. You know, I wish I could say that I do that. I don't. These guys do, and they have seen what these broadheads, all different styles, can do. So I think they're going to add some great information to this, Justin.
Yeah, definitely. They're going to bring a perspective of, you know, people that have seen a lot of arrows get shot at a lot of animals over the years. So I just think there's an important perspective there in just the sheer numbers. You know, all of us individually, you know, on a good year, we shoot, you know, 3-4 animals, where, you know, at an outfitting business like Table Mountain, I mean, why don't you guys chime in? How many animals, you know, archery shot animals do you think you guys are seeing approximately in a year?
In a year?
Oh, over 100 that are dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, but 100 times 25 years, I mean, they've got some experience stacked up here for sure. So it's going to be good.
For sure.
So
There's only been probably the last 15 years, but you know what I mean? Previous to that was over 50 a year. So
yeah,
Sure.
So regardless, it's a lot of experience. So for purposes of our discussion tonight, we're going to be talking, of course, fixed blades, mechanicals. I just want to kind of go over some of the definitions, if you will, of what I'm talking about, at least when I talk about a broadhead. So I got my little broadhead case here. I got a bunch of stuff in it. There's a bunch of different designs of broadheads, right? So fixed blade broadheads, pretty straightforward, right? There's a thunderhead. I think we all kind of understand what a fixed blade broadhead looks like. No moving parts, generally 3 or 4 blades, usually some sort of chisel tip in the front. And the common misconception is that these don't fly well and they're hard to tune, which we know is technically an incorrect misperception, but that's a fixed blade broadhead, right? When we get into mechanical broadheads, there's a couple different types. This here is a Spitfire, so this is what I typically refer to as like an over-the-top style of broadhead. So when you shoot that animal, these blades are going to pop open like this. So they're going to open and they're going to go I have to go all the way and rotate backwards in order to get open. So that's an over-the-top style mechanical. Spitfire, the Grim Reaper is another popular one. These have been around for a long period of time. Then we've got what a lot of folks will consider a correct opening mechanical. This is a kill zone. A lot of you guys are familiar, obviously, with the Rage. There's a couple other designs out there. But when this hits an animal and these blades pop open, they just simply slide backwards and open like so. So a correct opening mechanical. Usually these are going to be a 2-blade only, whereas your over-the-tops are going to be a 3-blade. And then the last type are ones that have become more and more popular these last couple of years, and it's going to be some sort of hybrid type broadhead. So this is a DK4 from NAP. This is going to be a combination of a fixed blade as well as a mechanical. So the bleeder blades on this are going to be over-the-top style. So you essentially have a 4-blade broadhead. You've got 2 blades that are fixed, 2 blades that are mechanical. So there's a variety, obviously, of different types out there, and I think everyone has their own preference for various different reasons. PJ, I'm going to turn it over to you real quick. Why don't you give us a quick rundown on what you think or what you hear, you know, the benefits or pros and cons of each style of broadhead typically are? From a guy that comes in to the shop and wants to talk about broadheads, you know, what do you guys usually tell them?
No pressure.
So, so obviously,
The fixed blades, there's no moving parts. Anytime there's a moving part, there could be an issue there. So the fixed blade's going to be no moving parts. Generally, your fixed blade is going to perform better if you're going to encounter some kind of bone. It's going to be able to go through that versus some of the mechanicals tend to have thinner blades, and those things can break. You can have problems. Shots that are at an angle, sometimes you can have issues with the mechanicals versus the cut on contact. They're going to go through there. However, then on the flip side with your mechanicals, I mean, some of the blood trails that you get with those, when those things perform as they're supposed to, man, it's just unbelievable. For me personally, some of the best blood trails I've ever had are with mechanicals. So it's dependent on what you want. You can get a big, huge cutting diameter with those mechanicals that you're generally not going to have in a fix, just because now you're turning that thing into a sail if you have a fixed blade that is really as big as some of those biggest mechanicals. So that's generally what we tell folks. I would say kind of the popular thing right now that we're hearing in the store is actually weight. People want those big, heavy ones. We'll probably get into that at some point, but I'll mention that now. Fixed blades that weigh a lot and adding weight to them, 200 grain broadheads, or using 150 with a 100 grain brass insert, things like that. Guys are just interested in that heavy upfront weight.
In that case, you might as well just tape your knife to your arrow. Right?
Apparently, everybody's going Cape Buffalo hunting here. That's becoming a popular thing lately. So, would you guys say in the shop, do you think more mechanicals or fixed blades overall?
So, if it's very even, you have camps on both sides, but if there was
that wasn't the question. What is the actual sales figures? That wasn't the question. What are the sales figures? What does the
for
sales
2019?
That's what we want to know.
I would have to say that there is an advantage to the sales advantage to the mechanical side. That just seems to be.
I'm sorry, but I feel like a lawyer here right now, PJ. Now, that's what the sales advantage is, or is that what the actual sales are showing, that mechanicals are outselling fixed blade and hybrid style broadheads in the shop?
So I will be honest, I did not go and look up our sales figures for broadheads.
I knew you should have had Rob on here.
This is anecdotal in terms of what we tend to see and what we stock, things like that. The mechanicals, there just seems to be an edge there. We're in Pennsylvania, so most of our customers in the shop for sure are whitetail hunters. We do get some who go elk hunting and things like that, but by and large, most of our customers are whitetail hunters. So, you're going to see more of them leaning towards the expandables versus the fixed blade. You got a guy who's going elk hunting, caribou, bear, whatever. They're probably going to go more for the fixed. But yeah.
There you go.
Fair enough. All right. We're going to go down to Angie and Scott. So what do you guys see, and what have your experiences with broadheads been? And obviously you guys are hunting a range of animals, everything, antelope are typically smaller framed animals up to, mule deer. Obviously we've got elk. So what are your experiences? What are your thoughts? What do you guys tell your clients when they're coming on a hunt with you?
Well, I
got a question for PJ.
All right.
Hit me.
Oh, so what do you think my answer is going to be on my favorite broadhead?
On your favorite? So if I were guessing.
For a customer to bring.
Okay. Hunting anything or hunting?
Yeah, all the
hunting anything. My guess would be fixed. That's my guess.
Okay, now I'm gonna.
Wow.
Because I think that historically, go back 10 years, 15 years ago, I believe that we would have probably said the same thing. I think that, but after over time and watching, and I think that the history proves itself. I think that back in the day when they were first coming up with these mechanical broadheads, I believe that we had a lot of failures. I think we saw a lot of failures in the field. Until they kind of corrected those failures, we would have said fixed blade 100%. However, now fast forward to where we are killing over 100 plus animals a year with a bow, pretty sure we could say mechanical.
So our thought is, okay, if you run an arrow through both lungs, that's going to die.
Right.
Any broadhead's is gonna succeed in that method right there. So, and I've never seen any broadhead get through right where everything comes together in the shoulder. I've never seen anything get through that. I mean, an edge of a scapula, that kind of stuff, pretty much everything gets through. We get both lungs. So we've seen, like you said, hundreds of different types of broadheads. We've seen them all fail, every one of them, and we've seen everyone succeed. But the first question our guides will ask a hunter is when, say they're sitting in a blind situation and we don't see the shot. And the first question, what broadhead are you shooting? And then we'll ask where the shot was, and typically it's the back lungs, which means a gut shot.
Right.
So anyways, we want to know, what kind of broadhead they're using, so we have an idea how to proceed. Do we go look for them now, or do we let them go for a while? But generally we're hoping there's a how do you say that, correct opening mechanical.
Sure, your rage style, kill zone.
Yeah,
style broadhead.
that kind of stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, no question, especially when you get back into the guts. Man, if you can get that thing to open right, it's going to cut all kinds of stuff in there. No doubt about that, for sure.
So in those, like say, those big cuts, the big cut, it makes a big difference. And of course, always in any broadhead, there's certain broadheads that have been known for not being very sharp. And those are others that are known for being extremely sharp, and that is a big deal. I mean, an extremely sharp broadhead is a big deal. I mean, the only hunter that not take an antelope home with us last year.
No names now. We don't want to embarrass that.
We're not giving anything.
Is that Justin? Is that Justin in your camp? No.
But it was the broadhead that's typically known for not being very sharp. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the only one that we lost last year. So, and I like those, the same broadhead, I like the same setup on elk, deer, bear, mountain lions.
Interesting. I would have lost that bet.
So mechanicals on an elk,
absolutely.
all good, no problems?
100%.
No problem.
100%.
What about people with skinny arms like mine that don't pull a lot of poundage? I'll be the first to admit that thing's looking pretty skinny.
Angie killed hers with a mechanical broadhead. It was a quartering shot. Just barely shooting. The minimum weight, and got her bull without a problem.
But what we've seen as a good shot is a good shot. You could kill something with a field tip if it's in a good place, if it's a good shot. What we found is the mechanical broadheads perform better on the marginal shots. And when you're spot and stock in the field on any animal, or even sitting in a ground blind, we have the tendency to have those marginal shots. Things happen. You have
adrenaline
going for one. You have seasons happening around you. You have the animal not performing or doing what you want it to do. And those marginal shots.
Jumping the strings on you. You know how those whitetails are jumping your strings all the time.
Marginal shots, the mechanicals seem to outperform. At least what we've seen.
So without talking about, without throwing anybody under the bus and saying which specific ones are the ones that you've seen perform correctly versus perform incorrectly? What types or what's happening
Well, I would say that we've had probably more of of course, Rage is always in our camps. And the 2-blade Rage with the chisel tip top seem to perform better in most circumstances out here. Now, we have had a few of the fixed blade slick tricks, of course, perform really good too. I mean, there's always a good and bad to each one of them. Like you said before, you've got to outweigh what you think. You got to put together what you think is going to be best for you in the field.
Well, and I guess that is the key thing. What do you believe in? If you believe in it, I want you to shoot it, though. On the other hand,
Gotcha.
If you don't bring a setup that you don't believe in, because you won't shoot as well. I want someone to believe something.
Just because we said Rage performs great doesn't mean I want you to go out and switch to that right now. I want you to be shooting what you're comfortable with.
Absolutely.
I didn't know if there was a functionality like Justin showed. Expandables work different ways. I didn't know if there was one type of, top-down blade deployment or something.
I think we're more experienced with the correct opening, like he explained.
Okay.
Where they slide back.
Not that I've had any major problems with the over-the-top. I just haven't had as good a luck.
I think our experience has been more of the other, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Justin, I know that when we were together today, you wanted to talk a little bit about shot placement and the tie-in with broadheads. Why don't you go ahead and move to that?
I was going to let you handle that one, but sure.
Okay.
So when we talk about a mechanical broadhead, traditionally speaking, they have a larger cutting diameter than a fixed blade broadhead, right? A lot of these, especially some of your correct opening mechanicals.
So you just got to get them in there anywhere.
They're going to be 1.5 to 2 inch cut. Whereas, you can get some of these smaller fixed blades that may be 1 1/8, right? So the difference in the cutting diameter between these two is double, basically, right? So, I think what you guys are talking about, Scott and Angie, is those marginal hits, specifically the ones that are further back, you're going to cause more damage with this broadhead. So what Todd and I were talking about today was, does the fact that a mechanical broadhead cuts a bigger hole ever creep into people's mind when they're shooting and they start thinking about not needing to necessarily be as precise with their shot because the broadhead can make up for lack of a good shot placement? We all know a good shot is a good shot, but when people are shooting a 2-inch or sometimes bigger broadhead, do we think that there is a possibility that they think to themselves, all I got to do is hit this thing, and I'm bound to clip something with that big broadhead?
I would say that 90% of our hunters that come out here are really trying to make that perfect shot. They you got experiences happening to them that they've never been in before. They have an animal move some way that they've never seen, or they have to crawl a half a mile just to get to the animal that they're trying to get on. And the weather is not that great. It's sleeting in their face, or it's, raining, or just everything happens. They hit their arm because they're out of placement. They're not locked where they should be.
And Angie, you're forgetting about the pressure too that Scott puts on you too. I mean, I felt that pressure before. Sorry, Scott.
And we saw what happened, Graf.
100%.
15 yards. Shoot him.
Is he close enough?
Yeah, I see what you're going with on that, and I've heard that too. That maybe some people do that, but I don't know. The experiences. The hunters I see come out and hunt with this. It seems like I say the large majority are trying very hard to make a good shot, the best shot they can make. I think they practice hard. They're spending a lot of money to come out west, whether it's do it yourself or coming with an outfitter. I think it feels like people practice an awful lot. And I don't think that they're taking marginal shots to take a marginal shot just because they think the broadhead will overcome it for them. But when you do make a marginal shot, it does help with the recovery. I think we recover a lot more animals because of them.
Now,
Okay.
when we talk about marginal shots, would you guys say that you see more people when they miss? Are they missing back or are they missing forward?
We call it, yeah.
Well, I don't know. Don't know.
There's a part
That's
there.
wrong.
I would say back. And that's
Yes.
just in my opinion, because we call it the back lungs for a reason. You tend to pull because there's more space behind. You have this little teeny tiny target that you're trying to hit. And then when you get excited, that seems to grow. And when you grow to the mass to the back. I think you really start to look at that and it opens up your target area. And I think that they tend to go to the back because there's not much up here in front.
Sure.
What I think that I see a lot of is people not knowing anatomy very well and getting excited and not thinking through their shot. A quartering away shot, they're still trying to hit, quartering away shot, they're still trying to hit behind the shoulder instead of behind the ribs. That type of deal. I have a lot of, where the animal looks, you can see behind his shoulder, but they're trying to, hit behind the shoulder when they should be maybe hitting in front of the shoulder, on a slightly quartering to animal, stuff like that. And I
Everybody practices for the broadside or the
they
slightly
always
quartering away.
Then they get ingrained in their mind, shoot behind the shoulder, shoot behind the shoulder, shoot behind the shoulder. And like on a bull elk, I'll broadside and I'll cow call and I'll stop him. But what he wants to do is he turns a little bit towards you to see what's calling at him. And so they'll be slightly quartering to you, but it'll feel like it's broadside, but they need to actually shoot, super tight to the shoulder or just in front of it to get the correct shot, to get both lungs. If you don't get both lungs on a bull elk, I don't care what broadhead you're using, you're not going to get him. It's not.
So talking about getting both lungs on a bull elk, penetration obviously plays a factor. Mechanical broadheads tend to have a reputation for not penetrating as well as a mechanical, as a fixed blade, which I think is, to PJ's point, why you see a lot of these guys coming in that want to shoot 200 grain single bevel broadheads and brass inserts, and they want to be able to, blow through 5 animals standing next to each other. What do you guys, see on an elk with the mechanical broadhead? My personal feelings is that the pass-through shot isn't nearly as important as a lot of people make it out to be. And when I mean pass-through, I mean an arrow that flies through and sticks in the ground on the other side. So long as I have an entrance and an exit hole, I'm happy. I don't care if the arrow's hanging out only 2 inches on the off side. I still have 2 holes. Whether the arrow goes through and lands in the next county doesn't matter to me as long as I have those 2 holes.
And I don't think it even matters if they even penetrate the opposite side, as long as they hit
both lungs.
Both lungs in the proper spot.
And I've seen this happen a lot, especially in bull elk, is you'll shoot one right behind the shoulder perfect. And I've seen it with fixed blades. I've seen it with, it doesn't matter, where they shoot them and the bull runs away and it looks like 4 feet of arrow sticking out, the entrance side. And they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't get any penetration. I don't get any penetration. Well, what happens there is it goes all the way through and it's just about to pop out the other side and the skin pushes that arrow back out. So if you look in the chest cavity, you'll see that the arrow actually went through between the ribs, but the arrow pushes back out so far, it doesn't look like you got any penetration at all. And that'll happen maybe a little bit more on a mechanical, but I don't think it happens anymore. People argue that one way or another.
We've seen that a ton on animals we've shot, and it's been in our show, and you usually catch hell from people on YouTube who are like, I didn't get any penetration, even though the deer ran 30 yards and fell over dead in sight. They're worried about how far the arrow went into it. So let me kick over to Mr. Graf, because he's been a little silent back there. Yeah. Graf, you've shot a lot of deer in your day. What is your thought? What do you believe? What's your favorite? What's your choice?
He's doing this on purpose.
Creating controversy?
I didn't hear that. Say that again, Scott.
Is he creating controversy?
Yes, of course he is.
That's boy.
That is in Justin's blood. If people have not figured that out yet. I mean, every day I come into the office and I'm like, what will it be today?
Awesome.
You know, listen. Justin knows where I stand on this, even though he's proposing this question. I've been a mechanical shooter for a long time. I have always been, and I've been very specific on the show and everything that we've always talked about. I've never been a huge into the whole bow and tearing it apart and doing all the work on my own bow. And for me, mechanicals, having them fly as true as my field points has generally been almost spot on for me. I have tried and I've done different things with the fixed blades before, and for me personally, as you start stretching out past 20 yards, I personally have ran into those problems, whether it's my shooting style, whether I don't have things set up maybe as perfect as Justin and PJ, since these guys are the super technical bow nerds and bow geeks that they are. I'll be the first to admit that. I've had problems with it. So for me, the mechanical has always been, for me, it's been my go-to for sure. And at least from as long as I can remember, I've shot most of my better deer in the last 10 or 15 years with mechanicals.
Except your biggest deer you shot with a fixed blade.
Okay, well, that one. See, that's what I'm saying.
I'm just saying.
Angie, please don't take this personal, but Justin is kind of like a woman a little bit, where he can remember this stuff. I don't know what I did yesterday, but the guy knows what I did 10 years ago. Like, I don't know how he does that. Like, he just got something special over him, but okay. Well, despite that, for me, I'm going mechanical. Now, listen, there's no doubt. Here we go. Justin's going to keep adding the heat on here. I'm getting older.
I'm not even softer.
I know, because I know where it's going. So I'm just going to take the heat up front. My arm's getting here. So I'm shooting less poundage.
Go ahead.
No, I'm shooting less poundage. So, I was, thinking about if I was going to go elk hunting again, which I am going elk hunting to Colorado since I absolutely stink and have lost both of my, I've not got an elk yet in Colorado because I just completely suck. So I'm going to fix that this year. I've been saving my Wyoming points to go back, because whenever I go with Scott, I get elk. So, hopefully this Colorado trip's going to change for me. But this year, because I am shooting less poundage, because I have been having some shoulder pain, I've had to shoot less poundage. I was going to go with the fixed blade. And I got to admit it, now all of a sudden, listening to this podcast that we're doing here right now and having Scott and Angie say that, now they got me second guessing myself. So
hit him in the right spot, Graf.
Listen, I wrote it and circled it. Shot placement. I even wrote it right here. Like, that's a note to myself. So there you have it, Justin. Thank you.
To Todd's point about that's definitely one thing we see with expandables, is we get a lot of customers who come in and the words they say is, my bow won't shoot fixed blades. If I shoot expandables, they hit with my field points. And so, there's no bow manufacturer that makes a bow that's not going to shoot a fixed blade broadhead. It's a tuning issue.
For sure.
And so we see people who go to the expandables just because they don't understand the tuning part, or they don't want to mess with it. Because sometimes, let's be honest, it can be very frustrating.
Yes. Been many times I've been up late at night tuning a bow because you just can't get something right, and you keep tinkering with it, and sometimes you make it worse before you make it better.
And this thing right here, this will magnify any issues that you are having, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
I think a lot of people, and that's been one of the criticisms of mechanicals over the years, is people use them kind of as a crutch, right? When their bow isn't shooting a fixed blade right. And to the point about penetration, specifically with mechanicals, I think, if your bow isn't shooting fixed blades right, it's because it's not tuned properly. And if it's not tuned properly, it's really not shooting mechanicals right either. So even though that mechanical may hit where you want it to, if it doesn't hit straight into the target, it's not going to perform as well as it would, right? If it hits at an off angle because your arrow isn't flying straight, you're going to have penetration issues. which, again, you hit them in the right spot. It doesn't really matter that much. But that is just something to keep in mind. To PJ, to your point, like there isn't a bow out there that won't shoot fixed blade broadheads. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more work to get everything tuned and lined up.
And we're talking about the bow, but it could also be the arrow, okay? You go into some of these shops, and now if that arrow is not cut exactly flush on the end there, if there's just a little bit of, angle to it, a fixed blade broadhead, now that's not going to sit straight. That's just a sail catching air as it goes through, as it flies. So that's why, people take the time, hey, cut their arrows and then square the ends and then put your components together to make sure everything is truly straight.
Sure. And then put it on an arrow spinner as well, right? To make sure everything's gonna spin properly before you go out and shoot it. So let me ask you, we'll start with, I'm going to go back.
Hang on for 1 second, Justin. Just let add one more thing in there. So, and I think PJ can really add to this. And just let's keep this short because we're trying to cover a lot of ground. I mean, PJ can relate to this. I can relate to this because I have friends that own, archery shops. PJ, I know you can relate to this. What's the number one lesson for anybody listening to this? Don't wait until August and September to get your bow dialed in. Guys, this starts in May and June when you can walk into the, a shop like yours, PJ, and have the time with the person behind the counter to make sure things are dialed in personally. So I'm just going to add to this, like, don't wait, because a lot of times I know for a fact I have talked to friends of mine who have said, to Justin's point, I just went with the mechanical because it's as closest to my field tip as possible. And it's just gonna fly better and be better for me. So don't wait. I'm gonna add that in.
If you really want to frustrate yourself, I'll give you a recommendation to anybody out there: shoot a bear shaft with no fletching on it and see what happens. I'll tell you, it should fly. It should fly exactly like your fletched arrow if it's tuned properly, but watch what that thing does and you'll be astonished.
And I just want to be very clear from a liability perspective, if for some reason your arrow leaves your backyard, we are not liable for this in any way, form, or fashion. So as always, make sure you know what's behind, where your targets are before you do that, PJ. We have to make sure we cover ourselves there a little bit liability-wise. Go ahead, Justin. Take it.
That will scare you, bear shaft tuning. But you get that thing to fly right, you can shoot any broadhead you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, to your point, PJ, when it comes to tuning, for me personally, I'm usually a paper tune guy first. When the bow is set up, get that shooting well. Then I'm usually a walk back tune with a field point. And provided that I do both of those things, usually my fixed blades fly right with my field points. I know there's a bunch of different ways to tune a bow. Bear shaft, French tuning, all different stuff. But a quick paper tune, in the basement here when I set it up, go out and do a walk back tune. And if I do those two things and provided my arrows spined properly and all that stuff, usually don't have any issues at all shooting fixed blades, out to whatever distance I'm, hunting with, which for whitetails, usually 40 and under, for bigger game, possibly a little bit more.
Hey, PJ.
We like to keep them close, PJ.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey, PJ, isn't this coming from the guy who shut down the whole Lancaster Archery Classic earlier this year due to a missed arrow?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Yes. I believe that is.
I didn't miss my arrow. I was shooting such heavy poundage and high FOC.
Yeah.
My arrow stuck in the target, wouldn't come out, and then it broke. It's Lancaster's fault for using bad targets.
I think he had the one and only lead insert. I mean, he wanted maximum FOC.
I wanted everybody to hear my arrow hit the target from the other end of the range. Yeah, that was great. Nothing like being on the hot seat when there's hundreds of people standing there like, oh, that's that idiot from YouTube over there.
Whose fault is that? Whose fault is that?
It wasn't my fault. The girl on my bail even told me, "What? Make sure you don't break your arrow." And like literally 2 seconds later, I snapped my arrow in half. So, yeah, that's
couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
It's karma. Karma gets me every time, and I just never learn. All right, so we're gonna go around. if you had to, obviously, Todd, we're going to start with you. I think we know your option. If you had to pick one broadhead for the rest of your life, they're stopping making broadheads tomorrow, and you're locked in. Every hunting adventure you're ever going on, what are you picking? I want to know the broadhead, not just the kind of broadhead.
Oh,
Broadhead.
the 280? No. Spitfire Max. Spitfire Max.
Fair enough. Good choice. PJ, what about you? What's your broadhead? That's
Magnus Buzz
The
Cut.
Magnus Buzz Cut.
Yes,
They do have a lifetime warranty.
exactly.
set.
That's my key. When I shoot one of these, I don't care what happens to the animal. I want to find the broadhead so I can get it replaced.
Well,
PJ's
And now
going
it-
fixed blade.
dip these broadheads with some COVID-19, we'll be set. Guaranteed to find them all.
It takes them like 15 days to die, but you'll find them. All right. Let's go down to Angie. One broadhead for the rest of your life.
It would be the same as Scott's. We'd both pick the Trypan.
Trypan. That is a mean looking broadhead. I'm not going to lie. The Rage Trypan.
Yep.
I really don't know because I'm so torn between.
Are you torn more than ever because of Scott and Angie to here today?
No. Well, Todd, you and I had this conversation recently.
I know. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Well, and I told you that when I hunt, I'm a little weird. I usually carry multiple broadheads in my quiver.
This is weird. I'm not going to
Am I the only one that does that? PJ, anyone?
Scare me. Yeah, honestly, it would scare me coming into camp.
Really?
No, you're not the first one to do that. We have
It
that every
happens.
year.
Yep.
I grab a different arrow every time I get out into the stand, and whatever I happen to pick that time is what I shoot my animal with. I think I shot 4 deer last year. I shot all 4 of them with different broadheads last year.
That is great. I will say, well, I don't know. I will say what freaks me out is when you meet people on the side of the road, maybe, and you look at their bows and you see like 5 different arrows. Like, I don't know, if like you just meet somebody and there's like 5 different arrows in their quiver.
Yes,
Who are you
different
meeting?
lengths.
Oh,
Where are
come
you
on.
meeting on the side of the road that has a bunch of weird?
This is going to go to some inappropriate, weird place right now. Like, when you just meet different people bow hunting, you look at, and you know what the first thing you do is you look at their gear and like, why does that guy got 3 or 4 totally different arrows in his
There was a guy that submitted his trophy photo. Remember last fall, he shot a big buck, and I said something about that because he had like mismatched arrows in his quiver, and he had like kind of old school camo on, and he saw it and he like sent me an email like telling me why he had these different arrows and they were all the same lengths, and he like justified the whole thing. But if I had to pick one and one only for the rest of my life, I'd shoot a fixed blade. I shoot this little nitro from NAP. I love this thing. I've killed a lot of deer with it. And to your guys' point, if you hit them in the right spot, they don't go anywhere. I had probably the best blood trail of my life. The antelope I killed with you guys, Scott and Angie, I killed with this broadhead, and the thing ran 15 yards and fell over dead.
Perfect.
So one broadhead for the rest of my life, that's it.
And
Hey, listening to the Denny's there, I am going to do a Justin this year, and I've had some bad experiences with expandables. I'm going to put some in there because they were older expandables. So listening to them, I'm going to have a couple arrows there, and if the right shot comes, I'm picking that arrow just to give another shot, you know?
You just got to close your eyes at the beginning of the hunt, go in your quiver, grab an arrow, and whatever it is what it is.
We're also talking about the guy who like writes little things on his arrows. Like Justin will write things like, my favorite arrow. He'll do this. I've seen it.
I write better than Todd on most of my arrows.
Now, but if
I'm not
you,
the only one that does that, am I? I'm not
hey,
a weirdo.
Justin,
No,
if your bow is tuned, you can have those different heads in your quiver.
You're right. You're absolutely
As
right.
long as the weight's the same, you can shoot whatever you want.
100 grains all day long with a 75 grain brass hit insert, and I'm good to go.
There you
That's all-
go.
That's all I need.
I'd like to just touch base real quick on something that Scott said, because I mean, I think Scott, pointed something out that is very interesting and very cool, and probably one of the things that I think me and you do, Justin, and a lot of people do, at least that we talk to in our circle, is, and Scott and, Angie, kind of brought it up in the case of, the anatomy and, where you, actually hit the animal and knowing the anatomy. I mean, Justin, you and I used to have one of those cool little deer targets. I don't know what happened to it. We could stick the needle through, and just really understanding the anatomy and those printouts are just, it's so important. And so, I mean, I think anatomy is something that should be discussed and talked about. And anytime you're going on any kind of hunt, because all animals are different, right? I mean, whether it's, elk and just, where those lungs sit. I know, Scott and Angie have taught me that. And I know just even turkeys and just anything, right? Just knowing that anatomy and being as familiar with that as possible leads you to the next most important thing, right? After you shoot whatever favorite broadhead it is that you have. And that is, I wrote a few notes here, just, being smart and being patient and really understanding where you think you hit that animal, so you do the right thing after that arrow goes off, right?
Yeah.
Or after that shot goes off.
It's not even just anatomy, but it's situational anatomy. Because when that animal turns, I mean, you know what the anatomy is when they're broadside. But when that animal turns that unexpected turn at the last second, you got to know where you're placing that arrow the next time.
Yeah, but if you guys are doing your job correctly, you really should have them all come in broadhead for us clients.
That's true.
For 3 hours, we could tell you all the weird things that have happened to us over the years. But one of the weirdest things, and it happens probably two times a year, where someone hits them perfect in the pocket, okay, right behind the shoulder, and it ends up a liver shot. Explain that one.
And we've kind of done our research, and we think we figured it out, but it is very devastating to the hunter at that point in time, because we've seen that perfect shot. They've seen the perfect shot, and it doesn't come out so perfect.
It kills them. We get them. We know what's happened, but it's crazy. And I don't know if it's a jumping the string thing or if a drinking water head down thing, you know what I mean? But their diaphragm is pushed up so far that you're hitting right behind the shoulder and getting basically a gut shot, a liver shot. If I didn't see it, at least a dozen times, I'd call bullshit. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Wait, that happened to Matt Miller on our last antelope trip. He shot an antelope what looked like a 12 ring.
Exactly.
And the thing ran out there and laid down, had its head up, and they were like, what's going on? He ended up stalking up and shooting it again. And just like you guys said, it was like liver guts.
Yep,
exactly. And I've watched that shot a million times, and a million out of a million times, I'm like, that's a 12 ring. I mean, it's right where he put his pin. Very strange.
Yep.
What are your guys' opinion on mechanical broadheads and deflection? Or even not even so much mechanical, but what about just deflection in general? I mean, flat out hitting a rib and it's just not right. What are you guys' feelings?
Well, one of the main times I've seen a deflection was with a muzzy of all broadheads, fixed blade muzzy, and it was on a TV show, so we got to watch the hit, and it was Mark Kaiser actually. It was on a Boone and Crockett antelope with a bow, and he's quartering away. He hits it right just behind the shoulder. Antelope runs out there 80 yards, falls over dead. Like, great. So I go up and gut him, pull the lungs out. There's not a hole in the lungs. I look in the chest cavity. There's no hole in the chest cavity. And that arrow deflected off the rib, went up through his neck, cut his jugular.
That's what.
How about that?
Yeah.
Jugular shot. We need that more, Justin. That's what we need. Guaranteed.
Well, I remember a deflection that you had, Todd, with this broadhead.
I know where you're going with this.
And dude, you and I tracked that deer around for 2 miles around your swamp and never found him. And you swore it was a good shot. We had good blood, never found the deer. A couple weeks later, Paul shot that deer with a rifle, and we got to see the wound, and it was the same thing. Quartered away, hit the rib cage probably just a little bit too far forward, and just ran all the way down the side of the rib cage. under the shoulder. It kind of came out like right here, but never caught anything. And that deer survived. I don't think that deer was going to live. He was
but I think we can, and I
shot
think
it.
I have that picture, so I think we can even show that picture. We can edit it into this here so people can see it. You know, so it happens.
I think
to
it can happen
Todd's
with
point,
people.
I was going to say to Todd's point about knowing the anatomy and then being honest with yourself about where you hit. I hunt with an outfitter friend of mine in Illinois, and he said he always appreciated it because normally he asks the client, was it a good hit? Yep, perfect. Hit it right where I was aiming. And then, I'm sure the Denny's can relate to that. Then madness ensues. But he said he always appreciated me because I'll tell him straight out, nope, bad shot.
I thought you only made good shots.
Yeah,
No,
again,
no.
that's why I brought that up really quickly, right? Just, gosh, I mean, I've learned that the most since Justin and I have started, when we started filming, period. Just, oh my gosh, having that video footage tells a story that, quite frankly, 95% of the people do not get to see, period. And knowing that it can 100% be the difference of finding your animal. I guarantee it that Scott and Angie can testify to the fact that because they're there, and I know Scott, I've hunted with both of you guys, and these two have their binoculars glued to their faces at the point that the hunter lets that arrow fly, because at the end of the day, they want to know where that thing is hit, because that's going to be the difference of, no, you know what, we're going to go back and we're going to sit down and we're going to have lunch, or we're going to go help out another hunter and we're going to come back 4 or 5 hours later, whatever. Like they know that, so being honest, if you're listening to this and, and you're ever with an outfitter or you're with somebody else and they're not watching you and they're not helping you, knowing where you hit that animal and being 100% truthful with yourself is the difference of recovering that animal a lot.
It is. I would say that honestly, our hunters are being truthful at the time that they're telling us where they hit that animal, but that adrenaline is so much that they don't see exactly where that's hitting. Where we're training ourselves, we look at that stuff all the time, and that's what we're focused on. Where they're not, their adrenaline's going so much that they really truly believe that it was a good shot.
Yeah, they're not lying. It's what they saw, but what happened isn't what they actually saw.
What they saw.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say two things to that. To Todd, to your point with us filming, there's a lot of times that even the footage that we have and we look at it and we believe we know what we're seeing in the footage isn't exactly what's represented when that animal is recovered. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're shooting lighted nocks, and at different angles, the point of your arrow is 2 feet, 2.5 feet in front of that knock. So a lot of times what we're seeing on that footage isn't actually where that point of that arrow is. There's been plenty of times that I've shot a deer and, thought one thing, and then I go recover that animal, and, and it's been both ways. I thought I made a questionable shot, and then I get up to it, I'm like, oh shoot, that was a lot better than I thought, and vice versa. You think you make a good shot, turns out your shot is not so good. And my second point to that is, even if you think you make a good shot, if you get on that blood trail and it's not what you're expecting it to be based on what you believe the shot to be, you have to let the evidence on the blood trail dictate what you do, not what you think you saw in your mind, because what you saw probably isn't accurate. Whatever you're seeing on the ground, whatever that sign tells you, if that deer's gone farther than you thought it should have, if the blood trail isn't good, if it's bedded down and then got up, whatever the case may be, let the blood trail dictate what you're doing, not what you thought you saw in your mind, because most of the time what we think we see isn't exactly what it is.
That's hard, and that's where it helps to have somebody with you who did not take the shot to say, hey man, what I'm seeing here is not what you're telling me. Let's back out.
Yeah, once you get on a blood trail of your own animal, I've told a lot of my friends this, like when we're tracking deer together, I always say that the guy that shot the animal shouldn't be the guy in the lead.
Right.
He's too anxious. He doesn't want to find the next drop of blood. He just wants to go, push. You know, just
Yeah.
that guy's the dude in the back holding last blood, you know, as much as he doesnn't want to do it. And the other guys are the ones doing the tracking.
I'll never forget that with Tim Ainsworth on our team when we went and helped him track a deer one day. We're going for this deer and it was dark, and I mean and you know, I should have had the Hunt Stand app up and running, and we just didn't. Whatever. And I'm like, Tim, dude, we're going backwards. Like I like, dude, I know this is not right. And he's like, no, we're good. Well, somehow, like, I don't know what happened. And dude, we're back at his deer stand. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, it was like, you know, but anyhow, Justin, I know we were trying to limit the time here. You probably have one or two more questions, and we got everything covered. I know people are going to ask questions. I think that one tool that you were talking about is made by Luminoc as far as, an arrow squaring tool, Fast. Is that the one? I think it's called Fast, the Fletch arrow squaring tool. I know that's a big deal. I think you're actually going to be doing a video on that product because, and interesting enough, PJ, you brought that up because that was something that Justin and I were talking about earlier in the week. It's because that can make a huge difference, right? And it's hey, bow hunting is all about details, right? Making sure that everything is as dialed in as humanly possible. So I want to personally, I know. We sprung this on you last minute, Scott and Angie. I apologize for that, but Justin and I were sitting and we were talking like, you know what, PJ's great and all, and he's cool, but compared to the number of animals that you guys have seen,
I am.
well, you're online right now, PJ. We just know that you guys see this stuff every single day. You know what I mean? And me and Justin shooting 2 or 3 animals, a year is not.
I shot 4 last year, mind you. Plus turkey. Plus turkey.
Because I am amped this year. I am full of piss and vinegar, and I am gonna. You're dead this year to me, man. I'm going all for you. I'm gonna beat whatever number you got, whatever you put up.
Just don't shoot me, please.
No, we wouldn't do that. But seriously, what? Scott and Angie, thank you so much for being able to tune in here with us because your knowledge is very valuable, and I'm going to be completely frank with you. You shocked the living daylights out of me because I did not think that honestly was going to be your answer. I mean, I know that for a fact. Like that shocked me for sure.
Yeah, I would have guessed fixed blade for you guys as well. So if anybody's interested in checking Scott and Angie out, Table Mountain Outfitters, great operation out there. Todd and I have hunted there, killed animals with them. Make sure you check their website out. It's Table Mountain Outfitters.
They've never let me down. I'm just being very, very, very clear that that's the kind of people they are. They will work for you guys. So make sure you call them up and you talk to them because they are absolutely good people.
Yes, for sure. And of course, thank you, PJ. LancasterArchery.com. Is it Lancaster?
Lancaster. Justin, of all these years.
You said it that way.
No, Lancaster. I'm good at it. I practiced.
I got my gift card right here. I'm going to go order some goodies when we get off this meeting. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. We will see you next time right here on Bowhunter Dive.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.